Well, hello friends. Welcome back to the program. Today we are going to debug a website in Ladybird, which of course is something we do often. But today the website in mind is null.com, and it's some indie game studio. And they have a pretty simple looking website, but when we look at it in Ladybird, it just looks so busted. And I thought, given how simple it looks, we should be doing a better job. So I decided to hit record, and now we're going to figure out what is going on here. So first thing we always do is make a reduction, of course. So we will save this page, make a local copy, and then open that in Chrome to sort of trim it down a bit. And actually, in the last video, I was spending quite a bit of time doing reduction work. And after that, multiple people went and made various automation tools that automate some of my reduction workflow. So big thanks to everybody who did that. I have one of them installed here. This is Simple Trim CSS, I think it's called, by Tim. So we're going to be using that today. And the way it works is that I can click this button here and it will remove unused CSS from the page. But before I do that, I think I'm going to just try to trim it down a little bit. So let's open up our copy here and verify. Yeah, it still looks busted in the local copy. That's good news. And then we are going to see what we can trim down. So basically, this image here is supposed to take up the full width of the browser viewport. So I think we can just nuke everything after that image. Probably let's keep, there we go. And maybe we can nuke that as well. Wish list now on Steam. Sure. And that one we probably need, but there we go. Okay, so now we have slimmed it down quite a bit. We'll save this as null1 and just verify that, yeah, it still looks pretty crappy. Okay, so now to try Tim's extension. So if we go to here and we see that null1 is 804 kilobytes and 615 lines. So if we click this button, and then it says that the rules have been trimmed. If it still looks the same, it's probably okay. And then we'll save that again as null2. Then it has trimmed off 5 kilobytes, but usually it's a lot more in terms of lines. Yeah, so you can see it stripped off almost 500 lines of unused CSS. So some of that stuff that I was doing manually in the past, this extension just does with a single click. Very awesome. And there were a bunch of other approaches to this problem as well. This is just the one that I happen to be testing out right now. But yeah, so let's see what we're looking at here. And also let's just verify that this null2 still looks broken if we open it up, and it looks good here. Sure. Got some media queries going on here. Probably going to try to get rid of those first so we have a single view. Although before we do that, let's just run prettier so that we have nicely formatted output. All right. So I'm going to turn off wrapping, and we probably don't need the CSS custom fonts, so we can just get rid of those. Sure. And then let's look for the media queries. So let's see if we can nuke those. What do we get? Okay, we probably don't need this command infantry thing. Maybe we can nuke the whole description div, actually. Okay, yeah. So this is going well so far. For whatever reason, the text ends up on the right of the image instead of letting the image span the whole viewport. Let's see how much we can trim down here. Small description. We didn't need that. Actually, let me go ahead and put a border on stuff, and then maybe we can just nuke the background stuff. Description we removed. Okay, okay. Getting nice and trim here. So do we still have a nav? Whatever the nav is, we do have a nav. Although, I guess they're links. Maybe that was a hamburger menu that I unceremoniously nuked. Seems like we don't need the nav. That's good. Let's get rid of nav style. Okay, maybe we don't need this to be wrapped in some anchor. And then we have two images. Header small. There's display none. Okay, yeah, so that's probably what the media queries were doing, like switching between which image we're looking at. Cool. Removing some pointless gunk, and display inherit looks unimportant. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now we just want to trim it down as much as possible without breaking the bug. So this is okay. Yeah, so this looks important. Display grid. Grid layout. That's one of the areas of layout that I haven't touched much. A bunch of other people have worked on it, like Martin and recently Alexander. So maybe today we have to learn about grid layout. Okay, full bleed. That looked important. Okay. H1. Okay. Oh, the pixelation changed. Image rendering pixelated. I guess it looks a little bit better with it pixelated instead of doing like a bilinear filtering when we're scaling this image, or box sampling, which we recently added thanks to Jelle. Let's see. Okay, let me just trim some more here. I just like to trim so that it's as minimal as we can get. Okay, header. And that pixel thing can go in here. What is the full bleed? That's this thing. Okay, so that's the hero div. Let's just call that hero. Wrapper index. So this is our grid container, I guess. So you can probably move that up to the body element. One less div to think about. There we go, still broken, that's good. Also, by the way, notice that in other browsers, the default font family is serif font, and we use a sans serif font. And I don't think we should. We should probably switch to using a serif font by default like everybody else does. But for whatever reason, we haven't done that yet. But in the interest of looking a little bit more consistent, let's use Verdana in both cases so that we at least have comparable text. Or why not Tahoma? Tahoma is such a good font. Wait. Why does it look different? It's not the same font. Okay, maybe we can't load Tahoma for some reason. All right, let me go back to Arial. Okay, I should look into why Tahoma doesn't work. I have the, I think I have the Tahoma installed, don't I? Maybe I don't. Ignoring that. All right, so can we trim our stuff here? We don't need that probably. H1 title, probably didn't need that. Okay, maybe we can move that image to a separate file. What is that even? Athena Crisis. Athena Crisis. What am I trying to do? I'm just trying to use that instead of a huge data URL here. I'm just going to use PNG. All right. And do we need the hero thing? Maybe we did. Or what if I just put you here? Then what happens? Okay, maybe that's more than we can handle at this moment. Okay, so let's try to figure this out. Step 1, how does grid layout work? We're gonna have to figure that out now. So we don't need to call it wrapper because it's the body. And then this is immediate children of the body, which we have a div here and an h1 here. Those are the two immediate children. Okay, and the hero div overrides grid column anyway. So this up here actually just affects the h1. Okay, do we need the width 100%? No, we did not. Okay, so we're getting a little tighter. Okay, so we have the div hero with the image, and then we have the null publishes fine indie games thing. All right. Okay, so let's figure out what the layout is supposed to be. How does this even work? So do they have a... Okay, they have a thing I can click on here in Chrome, which I guess visualizes the various grid tracks. And the grid tracks are, if we look here, so we are using grid template columns. Okay, so we have 3 tracks here, I guess. First one is 1 fractional unit. Second track is, I guess, whichever is the smallest of 89 ch or 100% minus 89 pixels. All right. And then another track of 1 fractional unit. Or is it 1 flexible unit? I don't know what FR stands for. Let me look that up. What does FR stand for? Should I be looking at grid 2 maybe? FR. Flexible lengths, the FR unit. A flexible length is a dimension with the FUR unit. FUR unit. All right, it's the FUR unit. Right, so we have 3 tracks and 3 column tracks. And what does that mean? Also, what happens if I remove the image? Like, I'm guessing it's not going to look right if I remove this whole track. Just out of curiosity. Okay, so it looks pretty broken without the image as well. So maybe I will save this as null3. You'll keep the image version as null2. And maybe we can debug without the image. Because it's slightly less complicated. So less complicated is usually good when you're trying to debug layout, because the more stuff you have in your layout tree, the more things you have to understand how they're moving. So I'm even going to remove the trailing new line from the file, and we can look at our layout tree. Right here, it is now very simple. Just a viewport, and then the initial containing block for the root element. Then we have a grid container for the body, and a block container for the H1. Sure. With some text inside. Okay, now to understand the grid. So we had 3 tracks and columns, and first one, it was 1 for, and then some math in the middle, and then 1 for again on the right. Okay, oh, and it tells you here like how wide the tracks end up becoming. Okay, and because it's min, then I guess it gets stuck here at 89 ch. That's effectively the max width of the middle track. Okay, fair enough. Now we can't visualize the tracks here, but I'm curious if this is going to be that we just like don't support some fundamental thing here, or if I simplify this formula here, because the formula is a little bit weird. That feels like something we might not support. So what if I just hardcode 500px? Okay, then it works. Kinda. I mean, it still looks busted because the grid container doesn't end up as tall as it needs to be, but at least we're centered. So I guess we have multiple issues here. Okay, so we can't handle this. I think min and max and other CSS functions like that were added just a week ago or something like that. So we haven't had them for very long, and maybe we're not handling them everywhere properly. Like, let's see what happens if we just dump out the style sheet here. Okay, 500px grid template columns. Yeah, that seems fine. That's exactly what I put. Well, that's what I put actually before saving. Okay, now that it's broken, it says grid template columns empty string. Okay, so maybe there's a parse error. Let's have a look. Oh, where would this be? Grid template columns. What is grid template columns? It is a grid track size list. Okay, so in the parser, where do we parse a grid track size list? Okay, and I guess let's see how that is actually spec'd. Grid template columns. Explicit track sizing. Okay, so it's none, track list, an auto track list, or subgrid something or other. Sure. So this is a track list. Seems like there's quite a bit of syntax here. Sweet. So what are we actually parsing? Component values size 1. Okay, so this is for like single value syntax, which this is not. We have 3 values for the 3 column tracks. While tokens has next token. And then if token is a block. Okay. Otherwise, if it is a block, I guess it's not a block, but it would be here. So a track sizing function. Okay, when we parse a track sizing function, we check for repeat, min, max, or calc. Okay, well, we have min, so none of these are min. I wonder if I did calc like this, like wrap the min in a calc, would it work? that does work. Interesting. Okay. So maybe it's just that instead of checking for calc here, we should really be using, somebody added a helper for this. I remember seeing a helper. Parse. It's called dynamic something. Parse dynamic value. That's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, so parse dynamic value. We'll try to parse any kind of calc or something that can be wrapped in calc, I think. Such as calc, min, max, clamp. Right. Okay. So I think parse dynamic value is what we want. When was that added? I feel like that was recently. Parse dynamic value. Maybe it was a while ago. Maybe I just saw somebody using it. Yeah, I think Stellar7 has been working on a bunch of CSS value function stuff recently. So I probably just saw it in one of his patches. Okay, so let's try using parse dynamic value. Here, instead of checking for calc, we will say else, and then how do we do this? So like if auto dynamic, I guess maybe dynamic is parse dynamic value token, and it's an error or a ref footer. Okay, so dynamic cannot be an error, and it has to be non-null as well. That's a kind of a really awkward API, actually. I mean, it makes sense in a way because it can return an error if you have a allocation failure. But if there's a parse error, I guess it returns a null pointer. Sometimes when I see code like this, I'm starting to question if we are making a mistake by not using exceptions. But let's not entertain that thought right now. Okay, so I have a non-null dynamic value. And what is it that I want to do with it exactly? So I guess I would be, actually this would be like that. And then can I release the value and then release a non-null copy of it? And then what can I use to construct this thing? Explicit grid track. What was it called? Explicit grid track. Grid repeat, grid min max, grid size. So this would be a size, I guess. It's a length percentage. Okay, so let's see if we can pass a length percentage here. Grid size, length percentage. Is this? No, it's probably not right. This is getting a bit messy. Let's see if we can extract some of this. I think this CSS parser might be one of the biggest, like slowest to work on files in the whole SerenityOS project. Like C-line just chokes on this thing. What are we looking at? Non-null ref footer to CSS length percentage. Okay, what can you be constructed from? Length percentage. How does parse grid size do it? Grid size, length percentage. calculated style value, release value. Oh, wait, it wants a calculated value. And I probably have just a style value. Okay. But dynamic values are always going to be calc, aren't they? Yeah, it always returns a calculated style value. So why doesn't this thing return a calculated style value? One might wonder. But instead of asking ourselves that question, why it doesn't do that right now, I'm going to go ahead and say as calculated here. And then it happily converts. Cool. Okay. Wonder if this will work. I feel like it should work. So let me remove the calc wrapping. Okay, so that seems to have helped. And if we dump it out now, you can see that it parses it and then wraps it in a calc. So we're all good. I wonder if that fixes the original website. It's better. Still looks broken here though. The header is on top of the text, but we're making progress. Okay. And it actually looks okay with the media query switching as well. So that's good. Okay, then I guess we need to figure out what's up with the vertical positioning. So I'm guessing it seems like it's taking up no space in the grid container. Or, I don't know, it's behaving weirdly. Why doesn't it make the container bigger? If we look here, it's supposed to make the container bigger. And if we look at the box model here in the Firefox DevTools, we can see that the margin is making the grid container bigger. So maybe we're just not, I mean, we're clearly shifting down by the margin, but we're not making the grid row taller to accommodate the margin. Is that what's happening? So yeah, just simplifying further. What if we said margin top 0, then it would move up, then it moves up. Although we're still missing the bottom, of course. So it seems like it's adjusting the Y position based on the margin top value, but it does not create any extra vertical space within the grid. Yeah, the grid container size is unaffected by the margin, but only the element position is shifted by the margin. So that's definitely a bug on our side. So what do they say about margins in the spec? Let's see, margins. Grid item margins and paddings. Sounds relevant. So as adjacent grid items are independently contained within the containing block formed by their grid areas, the margins of adjacent grid items do not collapse. Thank goodness. Margin collapse is such a hassle to implement. Thankfully, we've done most of it. I'm glad we don't have to do it here. Okay. Percentage margins and paddings on grid items, blah, 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 but we don't have percentage margins. No, we have absolute values. Auto margins expand to absorb extra space in the corresponding dimension, can therefore be used for alignment. Okay, but I think in our case, it's an H1, which has hard-coded, I think our user agent style sheet hard codes for H1 some like margin top and margin bottom here, right? Based on the font size with M units. So probably we just need to, what do we need to do actually? We need to make the track bigger, I think. So let's see if we can use this inspector thingamajig. And looky here, right? So I think the whole grid track, the whole row is made bigger to accommodate the margins. So that would be track sizing algorithm maybe. And I guess these are intrinsic track sizes because we don't have the height of the H1 is automatic. So it's not specified exactly how tall it should be. So we have to do some kind of intrinsic sizing to compute it. Okay, so first it resolves the sizes based on items that are contained wholly within a single track. I think that's us. We are wholly within one row here. Okay, and then it gradually adds in the space requirements of items that span multiple tracks, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So what should I be looking at here? Size tracks to fit non-spanning items. For each track with an intrinsic track sizing function and not a flexible sizing function, consider the items in it with a span of 1. Okay. I'm guessing we're auto. Okay. So we should be using the minimum contributions. And the minimum contribution of an item is the smallest outer size that can. Oh, the smallest outer size. The outer size is the margin box size. I bet you that we are not using the outer size, maybe the inner size instead. Let's have a look. So what was that? The minimum contribution. So grid formatting context, minimum contribution. This is the part where I love when the code looks like the spec and uses the names from the spec, because then you can just search for things and find how it's implemented, even though I haven't really worked on grid at all. Okay. So the minimum contribution of an item is the smallest outer size it can have. Yada, 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 sure. And how do we calculate that? If it should be treated as auto, return automatic minimum size. If it is auto, otherwise, blah, blah, blah. Add containing block size for item, minimum size. Add border box sizes. What does that do? Wait, that seems incorrect. So it's using the border box rather than the margin box. And can I resize this thing maybe? It's only used in grid. All right, so let's see. Let's add a new helper. We'll call it add margin box sizes. And okay, so it's just taking a given content size in one axis and then adding the border and padding on both sides in that axis, in the relevant axis. But I think here for the margin box, we can use this helper called margin box left and margin box right. And there's such a helper for the border box as well, but let's not mess with that code if we don't need to. And for rows, it's the margin box top and margin box bottom. All right. And then let's just tidy here a little bit. You can be const. Okay. And for good measure, a little bit of no discard. All right. And what if we just use that here? Add margin box sizes. I feel like we're going to have to check for this in more places, but yeah, that's not quite enough. Okay, so are we in the right place though? Automatic minimum size. I mean, why shouldn't... Automatic minimum size. Why is it using the border box size here? I don't think it should. It should be the content size. And then we should add the margin box size here. That feels more correct. Probably here as well. This could probably be factored a bit nicer, but let's just plow forward, see what we can do. Okay, progress. At least now it's becoming larger. Although now we made the H1 much taller as well for some reason. So we made the grid container large enough to contain it, but we added size to the grid item, which we didn't want to do. Also, now I'm curious, border box sizes. Min content contribution. This should also be margin boxes because the margins don't collapse in the grid layout. That means that the min content contribution and the max content contribution of any grid item has to include its margins because they don't collapse and they do contribute to the size, to the intrinsic size of the grid container. So we do need to change those margin box sizes as well. Max content contribution, as I was just saying. This is going to break a lot of layout tests, but I think it will be progressions, all of it. Border box. Okay, so now nobody actually uses the border box helper anymore, so let's nuke that. Okay, good. And what else do we need to do? Now we have the problem that the H1 is too tall. The grid item is too large. Okay. Why did we make it so large? How do we calculate the set content height? Right, resolve grid item heights. This is exactly what we need to be looking at. Okay, so the used height is, if it's auto, then it's the containing block height minus border top, border bottom, padding top, padding bottom. Wait, what? Okay, so there's some kind of math here. So maybe it's just that we need to subtract the margin stuff here as well. Now that we've added the margin to the track sizing math, we probably just need to adjust this. So instead of doing it that way, can we just say margin box top? Oh, not that much Copilot. Bottom. Cool. Hey, look at that. That looks right. Do we have the same problem with width? Resolve grid item widths. What's going on here? Try compute width. Okay, so there's more stuff going on here with margins. Oh, this one already takes margins into account. Okay. So it's just heights. Got it. All right, let's see. Does that fix Hey, look at that. Well, that's looking better. That's more like it. Okay, cool. And then, oh shoot. Seems like we're not, I guess it's like a carousel and we're supposed to clip the overflow here. Well, let's ignore that for now. We've got plenty of stuff here that we need to tidy up and make tests for. So let's get cracking on that. So what do we have? We have the first thing, which was a grid template columns with a math function. So I guess we can just make a very simplified test out of exactly that. So tests libweb layout grid. Oh. What do we call this? We call it grid template columns with min CSS function. Sure. And hello, friends. Seems all right. And just to make sure that the test is not testing too many things, we'll just set margin 0 on this fella so that it doesn't interfere with our next change. So no fix UL. All right. Right. Maybe we can simplify this a little bit further, like the smaller of 50px, or I don't know. Why was I trying to mess with it? Just leave it alone. It was fine. It was fine the way it was. Okay. Now let's go ahead and rebaseline our test so that we have an expectation. Cool. Maybe I should have written the parser code a little bit. I mean, like, this could all be one big ugly thing, right? It seems all right. That's probably okay. Okay. And let's add those two. Cool. So libweb support, dynamic CSS. CSS dynamic value, is that a thing? I don't know that that's a thing. Dynamic value. Calc, min, max. What do they call those? Where do we even know how these things are spec'd? CSS min. MDN is usually good at finding specs for things. CSS values and units. All right. Not mix, I'm looking for min. Comparison functions. Okay, so yeah, so support more CSS functions in grid template. Grid, what's it called? Grid track list? Is that what they were called? Where are we here? Track sizing function. Oh. More CSS functions in track, grid track size lists. Instead of hard coding a check for a calc, we now call out to parse dynamic value, which allows use of other functions like min, max, clamp, etc. Cool. Cool. And then it was all about, I guess this was one big fix really, just like using the outer size or the margin box when deciding how large a grid track is, or using the vertical margins when deciding how tall a grid row is, and then sort of just cleaning up the fallout from that change. So again, we can use this, but grid row height affected by item margins. Oh, I didn't say the name of that thing quite right. Okay. And well. Null. Let's say null. Or we can also leave the original text. Null publishes finding the games, because why not? Right. So this is what it should look like. That's what it does look like. And actually, I'm sure that we're breaking multiple tests now, so we're gonna have to check that. But one thing at a time. libweb. Use the grid item outer size when calculating their minimum contributions. This fixes an issue where previously we used the border box, which meant that margins did not affect the intrinsic track sizes, or that tracks did not grow to accommodate item margins. Right. We have our test, but let's see what breaks. Oh, look, many things break. So which tests break? Oh, it's actually only one test that breaks? Okay, I thought many things would break, but I guess this test breaks in many ways. This test looks really weird, but what actually changed here? Let's look at the diffs. So heights are growing a bit. I guess the important thing would be to see a visual comparison of what we had before and what we have after. So let's take a screenie here. Hello? Take a screenshot. Does that not work? It does work. Okay. And then let's just revert head. Take another screenshot. Paste that in. Okay, so this is before. This is after. So 1 and 2 definitely looking a little bit different. 1, 2. So that doesn't look quite right. How suspicious. It's the only thing that changes is that we now grow the, grow the track under the 1. Oh shoot, let me just see how that thing looks here. Can we look at this in Chrome maybe? Also, we're gonna need to simplify this if we're gonna try to understand it. I'm not a huge fan of these gigantic tests that have like many things going on. I think it's typically better if you can have a test that only checks the minimum set of things. But of course you can always make a reduction if you break something. So I will call this one And now we are in the before state. So this is before. And this is after. Okay. So actually 2 grows, 1 does not. So why does 2 grow in this case? What are we doing differently? 2 has a pretty hefty border. I wonder if the border is what's doing it. It does kind of look like, if the border is 10px, it does kind of look like the border is what might do that. If we do that, is that enough to still get the problem? 2. Okay, that's good. So why do you become so tall, Mr. 2? Okay, first thing to investigate, is it caused by the border? Let me see if we can fix that up. Grid item 2, grid item. If I remove the border, they're the same height. Okay. So the difference between these two fellas is that the one on the left has an explicit height. Other than that, they are identical. Okay. So let's see. How should this look? They should both be 50px tall, which would make sense. So 50px is the inner size of grid item 1 here. So why is 2 expanded? So presumably it expands because there's more space now. Are we making the track bigger than it needs to be, maybe? Let's see. So he will have auto height, which means that the height of item 2 is the containing block height minus the margin box top minus the margin box bottom, which should be just a border. Okay. So let's see, if we remove the second item. Aha. Okay, so the second item is not at fault. It's the first item that's at fault. Second item is just filling up the available height in the track. That's good. Okay, so the available height in the track is too much. We're making the track too tall. And why are we making the track too tall? I guess because of something in the change that we just made. So are we adding the border box twice somewhere now, maybe? That would kind of make sense. It looks like it's 20 pixels, right? If we look here, let's take a little measurement. 20 pixels tall, exactly, right. So I think it's just the border is being added twice somewhere. Grid item heights, but the problem is the height of the track. Track size, run track sizing, okay. Resolve intrinsic track sizes. So is it the minimum contribution? I screwed that up somewhere and now we're adding the border twice probably. How does this work? Increase sizes to accommodate spanning items. But I'm not a spanning item. Maybe it just goes to the same place anyway. Let's see. The min content contribution. So we know we have a preferred size that's not auto. It is 50px. Item preferred size, sure. And add margin box sizes. So we're adding it to for the min content contribution, we're just adding it to the preferred height. So we're adding 20px to 50px, which should net 70px, which would be the total correct height of the track and also the border box height of the thing. This should be 70px. Can we zoom out? Get a, yeah, 70px. Okay. So where are we adding more than that then? This is the max content, minimum contribution. Oh, here probably. I'm calling add margin box sizes on the what we get from calculate min content contribution, which is already itself doing add margin box sizes. Okay, my bad. Okay, we were just doing that twice. And we should not do that twice. And then automatic minimum size is the content-based minimum size. That's fine. Those are all content sizes, not outer sizes. Okay, that should be the fix. Okay. Oh, that's now I just loaded Ars Technica, which I was working on earlier. Look how good it looks now, by the way. Spending a bunch of time getting all the background images and stuff to load on the site. The latest thing is the speech bubbles here now also load. But man, this is so nice. Unrelated to what we're doing today, though. So, headless browser. Can we run all the tests? And they all pass. Fantastic. So I made a bug, and we had a test that covered the bug. That's amazing. Big thank you to the people who added that test. Even though it was a big test, it only took us a couple of minutes to find and track down the bug. So super, super awesome that we have tests nowadays. And this is, of course, why I also spend time now adding tests when making fixes like this, so that they can catch the next guy making a dumb mistake like I just did. That is great. So where did we end up now on null.com? Pretty good. Yeah, I'm just going to leave this overflow issue here for the next person or for my future self. But this is cool. All right. I think that's it. So I think we'll end the video here. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. It is really good to be back. If you missed me, by the way, I was in Spain. So I was at this thing called the Web Engines Hackfest. I should have mentioned at the start of the video. I was at the Web Engines Hackfest, and I presented Ladybird. This thing right here. And actually, I should have gone to the YouTube channel. That's where I meant to go. Because the presentation is available on YouTube. So if you want to see my talk about Ladybird, it's right here. I will link it in the video description. Yeah, I think it went really well, by the way. People seem to really like it, so it was awesome. Okay, end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you all next time. Bye.